Alright, hey everybody. What is jazz? That is the question. And that's what I will answer by the end of this lesson. And I'll have a little bass line for you of one of my favorite jazz standards. And that's what we'll get out of today's lesson. And if you haven't yet, reach down below, subscribe, hit that bell notification because I have a whole series going on. This is the third part of the origins of American music right now, and I've got probably five more to go of the American genres. I'm going to go through all of them, and I give a bass line and give you the bass feel, so you kind of put that under your belt and add that to your repertoire. And so like I said, subscribe down below, leave a comment if you got any questions, maybe something I missed, or maybe you just have a discrepancy with something. Leave a comment, let me know. I mean, I'm not perfect, but I try. I work hard. So we will get started. And like I say, I'm Donald Witt with I want to play bass.com, the bass instructor for bass lessons that that help aspiring bass players reach their goals and be successful. And if you visit I want to play bass.com, check out the website and subscribe there. I've got a free ebook on setting up your bass, from taking the fret nut apart and adjusting the neck relief and adjusting the action, tuning it. We go over strings and everything. So check it out, pick up your free ebook. It's interesting, and we'll go from there. But so question is, what is jazz? Jazz is America's music. It represents America so well, and it's partly planned and partly spontaneous. Musicians can take a jazz tune and create it. It's improvisational skills. There's this tune, they give the structure, and then they improvise over it, and they can embellish it any way they want. And that's what makes it so much like that. It's America's music. It's like today's life, everyday life. Conversations, it's all in sports. It's all improvised. There's no definitive outcome. There's any given Sunday, anything can happen. And that's why it's so much like music. It's free. It's so much like America, it's free. You've got this structure, this with what you're within, and then you can go any way with that, accompanying other musicians, you working together to accompany that each other to get to that tune. So that's what jazz is, and that's why it's America's music, because it's so much similar, so similar to American life. You can relate to it. But so we've got, where did jazz come from? Now, jazz came from, they say, the European and African mix of influence is what influenced this music. And in the 1900s in New Orleans, a mixture of spirituals sung by slaves and Mississippi riverboat people and Spanish piano music, often viewed as devil music back in the 1900s, is where jazz came from. Some people say that jazz is a combination of African and European music because of what it got, because of the rhythm and feel comes from Africa, the blues feel, and the tradition of making the instruments an extension of the human voice. That's what the Africans did with their music. It was, the instruments were an extension of their voice. And the European part of it is from the instruments they use, and the brass instruments, the wind instruments, the piano, the sax, the trumpet, and so on. Those types of instruments, and the harmonies it uses. The harmonies it uses is like classical music, kind of. It's stretches classical music a little bit, but it's the harmonies like that that's similar to classical music. So that's why they say they come from the European. It mostly comes from the European and African African mixtures. But New Orleans being a port city, it was a spot for diversity, allowing all these music influences to blend, and coming over to America, they all kind of crowded right there, and that's where they, got brought their traditions, and then they all mixed, and that's where jazz kind of came from. The slave songs and the spirituals which they brought over, and that had the biggest role in the birth of jazz music. Jazz's originators and innovators were primarily the African American. Important jazz influence to this day is Louis Armstrong, and with his trumpet playing and everything else, he's the innovator of jazz. He was kind of where jazz got its start from. So that's just a little bit about where it came from. Like I say, if I left anything out, let me know. I'm trying to got some notes here, and sometimes I skip over them, but I think so far we're good. And jazz eventually went mainstream in its swing era in the 30s and 40s, 30 to 45s, or the big band era, with all the instruments, as many as 10 instruments were involved, at least 10 instruments, sometimes more. 17 instruments have been in the big band era. All of those instruments together, used together in the big band era. And this is where we got our 3/4 time, the swing times, the swing era. That's the 3/4 time. It that 3/4 gives it the swing feel. The big band swing jazz was primarily for dancing. That's where we get with the ragtime. It felt like you just wanted to dance. It wasn't a 3/4 time, but it just had that anticipated the accents and everything. Just made you want to dance. Well, that's where the 3/4 came in and made you once a swing. You wanted to dance. So the big band, that's what it primarily was to start, was the big band, the dance. The big band dance. That's what they call it, and that's what it just made you want to dance. That 3/4 just makes you want to go, and much like what it is. And they used a call and response kind of setup format when they were playing, which is kind of like trading fours, like for solos. But this was half the band, either the trumpets and trombones were, they would play a 4-bar, 8-bar phrase melody, and then the other half of the band would answer to that, and would respond to what they played. Not the same thing, but they would play something similar to that, and it would switch off. It would trade off like that in the whole song, which made it interesting, and that's called the call and response form. But that's like conversation, like I said earlier. That's what jazz was about, conversation. That's kind of what it was. This side would say something, and this side would respond to it, and that's what was so interesting about it. A little bass line here. It's one of my favorites, All of Me, and I've got in the descriptions below, I'll leave a link to this actual chord chart. You can have that and practice it and solo over it. And I'll try not to butcher it up, but we'll go through it. I'll play the melody and then walk some over the bass line, and then you can have it for your own practice, stuff like that. So like I say, check out iwantoplaybass.com. I'm Donald, and here we go. Let's see if we can get this bad boy going. check it out. I want to play bass.com. I'm Donald, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Subscribe, hit the bell notification, and see you next time.